look nice, Jovan.
Thanks.
You do. You both look nice. All right. Hi, everybody. I'm Sarah McDermott, PRINDIE founder, and with me today I have Jovan James and Elegance Bratton, the writers, directors of the short live action film Buck, which had its world premiere at Sundance Film Festival, and now we are honored to have it as an official selection of PRINDIE 2020. So a big welcome to you both. Thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having
Thank
me.
you so much for having me.
Absolutely. So there is a lot to unpack with this film. So this film has, a number of different themes that you've really done a masterful job at kind of weaving together in a way that feels just very, very natural to the story. And to quickly give anybody watching, a quick overview of the film. So at its heart, we have, a Black youth. He's struggling with some severe depression. He's also a gay man. And throughout the course of the film, we see him really just trying to cope with his situation and with different stigmas that have been put on him in different ways. And one of the ways in which he copes is he does go to attend a party where there are, different debaucherous things going on. But what I think you did a great job with is that it's not at all a feeling of like he's going to engage in, quote unquote, like bad or reckless behavior at all. You really do feel this fear that he has, that he's just trying to embrace these things that he wants in life, but also that there's a lot of fear around it, a lot of, blocks around it. So again, just a really wonderful little film. And what I always love to start with is just to ask filmmakers, why this particular story for you? So what was it about this story that you felt, this is a film that you need to make?
I'll start. Can I start?
Sure.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Flip the order. Well, one of the things that made me make this film has got to be Jovan. Jovan had written the story, and I mean, we met at film school, and we became best friends pretty much immediately at film school. I told Jovan he has to be my friend, and Jovan was kind enough to allow that to happen.
I had a lot of people waiting in line, but I definitely let it go.
But yeah, it comes out of that friendship. It comes out of that kinship that we have as Black gay men, and particularly, we were really interested in the Ed Buck story from a couple of years ago, and even right now. Ed Buck is a Democratic donor who had killed 2 Black gay men in his home because he had a fetish for seeing them overdose while having sex. Mm-hmm. So it just felt like Jovan and I was talking about this a lot, and it just felt like that story was like the extreme outcome on this paradigm that we're in as Black gay men. Mm-hmm. And dealing with depression, dealing with, the specter of HIV and AIDS at that time, now COVID and HIV and AIDS and depression. But, we wanted to tell a story tell these kids' stories, tell our story, to be able to put something that we know to be true on screen so that others can see it and feel it and hopefully be inspired to do more, to do better by folks like us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely want to second what Elegance said. And I think at the beginning, when I first started writing the story, I wanted to examine, depression amongst everyone, but, specifically amongst Black gay men and how that manifests itself in behavior. So, the film really evolved from the early stages. It was really a depressed, gay Black man in his dating life. And, when I brought it to Elegance, we just went deeper and deeper. And it's like, okay, what happens on the date? Why is he going to this person? As we, added all these layers to it, and it transformed into what you see today. But it started off just me wanting to examine depression and how people, cope with that, different coping methods, whether they're healthy or unhealthy. And also, at NYU, I had told, I was dedicated to telling Black gay stories, and I just wanted to keep doing that. That was going to be my thesis film, and I wanted to make sure that, I really was making the most use of my time at grad school, really exploring what I cared about.
Wonderful. Now, are these themes that kind of come up again and again in different films that you guys work on? In Elegance, I know you actually have one other film in our festival this year as well, but as a producer, you have Hyphen Ship, which sort of deals with some of these similar themes. Are these themes in particular what you really want to explore with your filmmaking career?
Yeah, for me, I always say, I'm very much inspired by the Black experience in the United States, because I feel like our journey to citizenship and full rights and humanity in a society is a quintessentially American tale. And America being a new country, right? That this is an opportunity to talk to the world about, what it's like to be an outsider, a perpetual outsider trying to get in. So I guess in short, the themes of my work pretty much revolve around outsider versus insider and subjectivity, right? Who are we? What agency do we have in our process of wanting to be in the center of something that isn't necessarily built for us? And the Black experience, the queer experience, is a couple of the lenses through which I explore those themes in my work.
Wonderful. So one thing, in this film that really kind of hit me in my heart is that there was this sort of juxtaposition where, okay, so he has this identity as, a Black gay man. He goes to this party, I think, hoping for some kind of connection, but also he can't quite find a connection there yet either, because he's not fully engaging. There's a lot of fear there. He can't fully engage with what's happening there yet either. So I wanted to sort of ask about that, just because, again, like I said, it was very affecting to see. You really understood the struggle of like, well, I can't quite fit in here and I can't quite fit in there. And what do you do, from there?
Yeah, I mean, I think for that scene, that the party scene, it's an ironic situation. I think it was good to examine, like, every person has a different relationship with sex and sexuality and how they want to do that, interact with that. And, in showing that scene, it was just, this is how this particular person moves through that world. And we never wanted to show any of that environment in a judgmental way. Those are all people, enjoying themselves, expressing themselves. And he just happens to not be comfortable with it. It's never meant to be judgmental. So I don't think it came off that way. But yeah, it was just like, it's a big part of the queer scene, that those type of parties and situations.
Yeah, I also think it's about the nature of consent. And, the world of sex for gay men is one that is as affected by patriarchy as the world of sex for heterosexual people and women. Except for gay men, there is the assumption of permission, right? That if you have agreed to take these drugs, if you agree to show up to have sex with someone who you haven't given your real name and they haven't given you their real name, that there's an anything goes that anything goes can happen. And when it happens, if everyone in the room assumes that you consent, right, then what does it look like to continue to engage even though you may not actually consent? You may not have actually said, this is, there was no text sent between the two of them that said, this is what you're going to expect when you walk into this room. There's going to be 7 Black gay men here and just me and my white friend, So exploring these questions of consent and really for me, it's interesting to talk to things like at this time, like the Me Too movement and Time's Up, where we've spent a lot of necessary contemplation on the status of women and how sexual abuse can occur for women. I think as a Black gay man, a lot of this stuff has occurred with me. And I'm so grateful that Jovan, created a vessel through which to express my experience.
Absolutely. Yeah, these are such important conversations to have, and definitely with your film, again, you've woven in all these themes that are so important. I think just to get people thinking about these, I think what you've just described is something that probably very few people have ever considered or realized, and I think that's like the power of film, that you can bring that out. For both of you in your lives, I mean, you've had some similarities in your backgrounds, and you've also had, your own unique twists and turns to kind of get to this point. So for each one of you, what is it that you feel has led you to film in particular? Like why film right now at this time in your life?
Okay, I'll start. So I never necessarily started off being a filmmaker. I think I had, tendencies towards art as a young age, but I first set off wanting to be a doctor, and I sort of put my life towards that as a teenager. And when I got to college, when I sort of decided for myself that I wanted to do film, and that was a tricky time because no one really supported me. At that time, I didn't have I do now, but no one really agreed with it. Family, friends, they just didn't get it. But I knew I had something to say. I'm a perpetual outsider. My whole life, I've been, discussed, criticized, critiqued, and all of that. But I don't know. I put that into my stories. I started writing in journals before I ever had a computer. Some part of me really wanted to do this, and it took me a while to figure out what I was, trying to tell myself. And I love watching TV and films, and I wanted to see myself. I felt I can contribute to this. I can help people with this. I can entertain people, and I can, examine any issues I have within myself that I know other people have, through my work, and help people that way.
I'm sure it was probably very challenging when you first had to announce, I'm not going to be a doctor. I'm going to do this. And I applaud you just for kind of staying true to that side of yourself and knowing, what you wanted to do, because I can imagine that was a tough discussion.
Yeah, I've had to make a few announcements in the family. It didn't always go well, but for this one in particular, it wasn't easy. I mean, I'm not trying to bash, but it was just, I think being Black and being a high achiever, there are expectations put on you. And when you break that, it's a problem. And some people will bend to the will of their family, and some people will not. I felt that no one could stop me from what I was doing, and I wasn't stopped.
So that was great. Yeah, for me, I kind of feel like filmmaking chose me to a certain extent. I spent 10 years of my life homeless for being gay. My mother kicked me out. And I was about 25 years old, and I was in a homeless shelter. I asked my mother if I could move back home. And she asked me if I was still gay. And of course, the answer was yes. And she suggested I join the military. And, I was very upset about that. And then the next day, I was recruited at the shelter. And, I kind of looked around and I'm like, this isn't necessarily my fate. So I said, all right. And then the recruiter suggested I be a filmmaker. Wow. We were just, you're talking to someone. It took about a week to get all the stuff organized, to get my ID and to just reconnect with my mother. So that way, if anything were to happen, there was someone who was aware of all of this. And so in that time of getting everything together, we talked a bunch, and he realized, he was like, well, and I took a test, and I scored very high on the test, the entrance exam. And then he was like, well, you qualify for every job in the Marines. If you take a test, you get a score, and then it tells you what job you can do. My score was high enough where I could do all the jobs. And he said, have you ever thought about being a filmmaker? Because I don't want you looking outside of these top 3 jobs. So it was film, combat camera, it was journalism. I watched the news, I don't want to make it. And it was intelligence. And, I'm not a snitch. So it was clear that film was the thing. I'm sure I'll try it. Yeah. And now we're here.
Wow. That's amazing. And I mean, thank you so much for just sharing that about your past too, because I just can't imagine, how difficult it must have been. And I'm so happy that you did arrive at film and that this came out of that for you, because what a thing to have gone through.
Thank you. I mean, it's the perfect medium for a person like me. It's like, I think storytellers are absolutely vital and necessary to the human experience. And you can't tell stories if you haven't lived through them. So for better or for worse, this is what I've been imbued with. And I'm fortunate enough to meet people along the way, like Jovan and our producer Chester and Terrence, Day, and all the other people we collaborate with, who make this so enjoyable to do, so healing to do.
Wonderful. Now you briefly touched on kind of your relationship with your mother, and in this film, I was actually very curious about the mother character. So we just get her sort of very briefly at the beginning. She's encouraging him to take his medication. And I know from other things, that I've read and, getting ready to talk to you guys today from your story, I mean, a lot of, young people are rejected by their families, you know, if this is their particular identity and their orientation. So I did wonder about her and the process of kind of putting that character together, and this may not be a question you can even answer because it might be deliberately ambiguous, but if she's someone who's kind of hoping he'll take his medication and change, or, you know, or is she trying to actually be supportive?
Oh, wow. This is a combination character. I feel like whenever Jovan and I write together, the moms become our mom. They like fuse together until he's like new people.
That's true. And I do try to maintain some distance too, but yeah, it I think right now it is hard to avoid them becoming our moms. But I you know, I think the ambiguity of her it's interesting. I mean, I think it might mean different things to different people. I feel that some people live in a limbo with their family of, you know, I know you're gay, you know, I know you know I'm gay, and we just won't talk about it, but you don't hate me, but you don't hate my boyfriend, but you might, you know, it's all these like sort of getting half of it, you know. But I think for the purposes of this film, I did kind of want it to be a loving, doting, maybe a bit overbearing, you know. But for my vision of her in this short film, you know, I saw I feel it's a worried but supportive mom who wants him to take the medication. As far as him being gay, you know, I don't think there's a problem with that, but maybe what are you doing at night? You know, that maybe a straight person wouldn't do, maybe, you know, that because there's that idea of it too. Just by being gay, you're automatically living a more dangerous life, apparently, you know. Some people think that. So I want to put some of that in there too, you know.
I certainly think that being gay means a more dangerous life. Just statistically speaking, you know, 1 out of 2 Black gay men are projected to get HIV in their lifetime. Something like 4 out of 10 gay men overall are HIV positive. So just, you know, and in addition to that, there's an epidemic of depression in the Black community as well. It's the highest incidence of suicide for young Black gay men in the history of this country. It's happening right now. So, you know, I think it's definitely more dangerous. And I think that fear, while true, is also still homophobic and damaging when expressed in ways that are overbearing. So I see this mother as someone who's loving, right? Is she willing to never talk to him again because he has sex with men? No. Is she necessarily engaged in the details enough to be able to be a confidant? No. Right? So there's the ambivalence that Jovan spoke to. But I think more so, you know, I think part of what this film is about, part of the pressure that Lynn feels throughout, is the fact that taking these pills does not fix him. And I think that pressure, more often than not in the Black community, is coming, or not even the Black community, anyone who's dealing with mental illness. You know, we want the ones we love to get better so that we don't have to keep worrying about them. And I think that the power of the story is in the sense that it's okay not to get better. You know, we have to.
It's bad, really. Sometimes it is. And sometimes you don't have a choice. So just get okay with it.
Yeah. And just keep going.
And also on the pill part, I think that was an important note that, you know, we didn't get to dive too deeply into in the short, but you know, antidepressants, the pharmaceutical industry in general, you know, a lot of people are prescribed these pills, and I think it works for some, it doesn't work for others. And I think I was looking at it as, you know, just questioning it. It's not trying to, you know, tell you how to feel about these drugs, but it's just, sometimes you just feel you're being handed a pill and that's supposed to fix everything, and it doesn't. And then when it doesn't, people are like, well, aren't you taking your medicine? What's wrong? You know? And it's like, that's really not going to solve it, but the world thinks that it will be solved that way. And so that's what's put on you, you know, as a depressed person.
It's very oversimplified kind of view.
Yeah.
And you do have, in the final minutes of the film, there is this little bit of sanctuary that he goes into with a friend where they're able to kind of both talk about, they're both on pills, and there's sort of this moment of like real connection with someone being able to share this experience, which I really love that's included, so that he's not so alone. I mean, there's other people having this experience too.
That's the crime of all of this oppression, is that it makes you think that there's something uniquely wrong with you, and it makes you upset. So it's crazy. We live in a culture that makes you obsessed with yourself and hates yourself all at the same time. So you're obsessed with this thing you cannot really truly stand, you know? And I think, it's important that people know that they're not alone, and especially for people of color to understand that it makes sense if you're going through some things mentally. And it's better to I think it's easier to heal from that space than to be like, well, what's wrong with you? Why can't you sleep? Why are you doing these things? You know why I'm doing these things, because the same things that are happening to me are happening to you.
Yeah, and I think it was important for me to show that kind of sanctuary, because I think, to me, it's a dream. It's not something a lot of people have ever experienced. Maybe they never will experience it, but I think we should try to be there for each other. Hopefully it can inspire someone to, want to help someone out, and not want to try to take advantage of them, not try to have sex with them. I think, there's all kinds of relationships that can heal you, help you, make you feel good. And, I wanted to see that this was someone who really didn't want anything from him. They didn't want him to act a certain way or do anything, which is like, I see you're hurt, and I'm just going to help you. And I'm not going to try to have sex with you. And I'm not going to judge your appearance or anything. It's just, we are similar, and let's help each other. And I think, it's left open as to whether or not they see each other again. But in my mind, I feel like that is the beginning of a unique, special, beautiful friendship, with people from two different generations. And I felt that was like my version of a happy ending, for a story like this.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think with a film which does deal, with such difficult things and which could go to a very dark place, I agree. I loved that was kind of this moment that you had towards the end of this little bit of hope and connection. It was really wonderful. One other thing I wanted to ask you guys about too. So I love the color scheme actually of this film, and how it helps to kind of pull people through this story. So this progression through this party up to when you meet this sort of new friend at the end. And I know you guys worked with an amazing DP who also worked on, learning to skateboard in a war zone if you're a girl. I wanted to just ask about the process of sort of planning out the technical aspect of this, and sort of the look you were going for, and the shots that you got.
So Zama's an incredible DP. She's our classmate. And yeah, she was someone that I wanted to work with for a while, and I approached her, and she was into it. And so the references that we were pulling from, I like saturated looks sometimes. I think for the story really worked. We looked at, Moonlight, we looked at Gaspar Noé's films like Irreversible, Love. We were looking at a lot into like European cinema, Latin American cinema, just because I think the queer stories that come out of those places, pretty much places that aren't the United States, the queer stories that come out of other countries are very beautifully shot, and they're very raw and real, and I kind of wanted that feeling as well. I like a raw, real style. I think. But also was a bit of education for me too, because it was a lot of questions. I was like, well, what about aspect ratio? What about, shutter angle and all of that? So we really went deep down into those things as well. So thankfully Zama was very patient. Because I was trying to what does this mean to the story? I don't know, what about shutter angle? So it's good to have someone who's very experimental with you, will try things with you and has a certain knowledge to be like, hey, this just won't work visually.
Zama's a goat. I think she's one of the best cinematographers out there. And in terms of the kind of visual style, it's very much about trying to express the interior claustrophobia of this character's emotions. So as the film moves from from location to location. We begin the film in private, alone with him, you know, and there's a certain level of intimacy that we achieve in those first moments, contrasted where, you know, he's similarly unclothed at this party, and how unintimate he feels in that space, yet how much closer we're able to be with him because of the claustrophobia of that boat, how small that boat is. And I think Zama did a very good job of using the color and the shot sizes to be able to kind of, you know, observe him and then get inside of his head and then see others seeing him. This kind of conversation of looks and glances. I thought Zama did a fantastic job of helping us realize that.
Yeah, it's really fantastic. Now, I had read somewhere, I don't know if this is still the plan or how far along this has come, but that you guys were thinking of possibly developing this into a series. So I wanted to ask about that, if that's in the works, and also just what the process is like to take something, you know, that's 13 minutes now, planning for it out over 8 to 10 hours of maybe 8 to 10 episodes.
I mean, I gotta tell you, I don't really like to do this often, but you were very well prepared. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I was able to find a lot on you guys. So luckily.
Yeah, through a day job or something. No, I'm just. Yeah, it's super fun. We are creating an incredible television series together, based on this character and his life and his family, and the people that you meet in this short are fully explored, and it's always a blast to work with Jovan. Jovan, the truth of the matter is, since I met Jovan and Tish, I've always been kind of anxious to work with him, and I'm always trying to find a way to continue to work with him. It's a blast.
Yeah, it is a blast, and it's an incredible time right now. We are developing into a show, and we cannot wait to share more. But you know, I think after the short had debuted, you know, there was discussion amongst us, like, well, what do we do? Are we gonna turn this into a film? Like, people asked us, like, is this gonna be a feature? And I think a lot of people want your feature film, and I felt, you know, that I never saw it as a feature. I felt this whole world has so much more to offer, and there's so much depth in every single scene. We could really go into like the dynamics of that, even like the scene with the mother, and that's like a minute long. There's so much there, you know. So I felt that this warranted, you know, more than a feature, and you know, we were able to get that process started, and like I cannot wait to share it with y'all, because I think this is going to be I think Len is his own millennial icon. You know, he represents a lot of people today, you know, in his own way, and the choice he makes to get over his issues in life, those are his choices. But a lot of people can identify with the problems that you'll see in the show.
Yeah, it's going to be fun as well. It's going to be very exciting and titillating and thought-provoking and scary and fun. It'll be awesome. I can't wait for people to watch it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just stay tuned for that.
We will stay tuned. I cannot wait to see it when it's ready, because I'm sure it's going to be spectacular. And again, I mean, I agree with you about the character of Lynn. I mean, I think that there's so many pressures and different things that character experiences that I think there needs to be discussion around. And I think you do a beautiful job of using the character and the story to kind of get that going. So thank you so much just for creating this film, and of course for sharing it with our community. For anybody watching this, PRINDIE is taking place virtually this year from September 10th to the 13th. Make sure to check out Buck. You won't be sorry. So it's definitely a must see. And thank you both so much again for being here today.
Thanks
so much. Thank you so much for having us. This was great.
That buzzed out for a minute. Sorry, what did you say?
I used to work at Small World Coffee in Princeton, so.
Oh yeah.
It's hit me at Small World. Watch this movie, and it's all is forgiven.
Yes. There you go. Just everybody tune in.
Got a few companies to call out then. That
All right. Thank you guys both so much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.